So, apparently Alex Jones's channel is getting shut down. Must be the deep state, the elite. I mean, he's been spouting this stuff off for like years and years and years, supposedly exposing all their conspiracies and secrets. And just now they apparently realize, oh shit, you're right, we control literally every aspect of human culture, civilization, and industry. We'll just tell YouTube to shut his channel down. He says it'll be shut down tomorrow as of March 4th, but I highly doubt it. But in any case, if it does happen to be shut down, if, by some sheer stroke of luck he ends up being right, I decided to download 2 of his videos on transhumanism so we can sort of reminisce about old times and all the history we have together, such as the time he said some stupid, unfounded bullshit, and I pointed out it was stupid, unfounded bullshit. Remember that, Alex? You remember the good times? So, the first video is Transhumanists will herd us like cattle. Let's begin.
We're having our whole future stolen, our destiny stolen. And I know I make that point a lot, but man, when they announce that, okay, there is little tech in all the new cars so the police can remote control your vehicle, it's for your own good, and when somebody runs from the cops, we'll just disable their car. I first read about that like 20 years ago, and only select vehicles had it, but police were starting to do it out in LA.
If this is even true, it apparently has led to nothing because there is no widespread case where people's cars are stopping without their consent due to police or government intervention. So it's just more fear-mongering and scaring over nothing.
The helicopter sends an order out to the car, and there's a program already inside its ignition, basically, that turns the car off. Well, it's way beyond that. It's going to tax us. It's going to track us. It's going to control us. And we're just allowing this whole system to be built that controls every facet of our lives and is run by globalists that are anti-human.
While surveillance is indeed an issue, and it's been talked about by people much smarter and more honest than Alex Jones, it's not a case where it's some worldwide government, global elite tracking down every single facet of humanity for some plan that involves actively hating humanity.
And we know the smartphones and the iPads and the screen time dumbs us down, lowers our IQ, hurts our relationships.
And boy, that iPad on the table right there has done a number on him.
It's not healthy the way we're going. It'd be one thing if we were rapidly evolving technologically and physically in some good direction.
If only there was some philosophical position that encourages scientific and technological development in order to, say, transcend these issues associated with the limitations of humanity. Like, if only there was something like that that would be able to address the issue of humans not being able to properly comprehend the vast amounts of data that come with technology. I'm stumped. I can't possibly think of what it would be.
We are devolving. We are rotting. We are falling apart. And I love the right-wing fake Christian PC police as well. If I use the word evolve or devolve, they go, there's no such thing as evolution.
Be careful, homie. Those people make up a substantial part of your audience. And this whole, like, anti-transhumanist crusade is about as much from a turbo-Christian point of view as it is from a conspiracy nutter point of view. You're rubbing shoulders with these people, Alex Jones.
I'm not debating Charles Darwin's evolution that the pop liberals don't cover properly and that you don't cover properly. But no, I don't believe in pop evolution. And neither does the elite. You might.
So he goes from chastising conservative Christians for jumping the gun anytime evolve is mentioned and them saying, well, we don't believe in evolution, that's bullshit. And then he goes on to, like, deny or say that Darwinian pop liberal evolution, as he calls it, which is essentially just regular evolution. Like, have you ever read a science book? That's what he's talking about. And he says he doesn't believe that. So in other words, he and the conservative Christians he's chastising are exactly the fucking same. At least they are on this specific issue.
Want to research what they actually believe. Even the New York Times has reported what the majority of scientists and genetic engineers believe.
Conveniently, there's no link in the description to this article, but I found a much more reliable source, the Pew Research Center, which specializes in figuring out what percentage of the population accepts what position. And in a 2009 article they've published, which I will link to in the description, they had a section about acceptance of evolution between the public versus scientists and some nuances to it. The consensus that creatures evolved over time was accepted only 61% by the public and 97% by scientists. The idea that it was due strictly to natural processes like natural selection, you know, that Darwin pop-sci liberal stuff he's talking about, was accepted only 32% by the public and 87% by scientists. While the idea that's guided by a supreme being is accepted only 22% by the public and even less, 8% by scientists. So the one time scientists accept evolution less than the public is when it's added in with some supreme being, which might mean gods, it might be aliens like Alex Jones will claim the elite believe in. While the majority of them accept evolution, and the majority of that majority accept that it was a strictly naturalistic process. So what is it, Alex Jones? Is Pew Research also in on it, but somehow New York Times isn't, except when they publish something you don't accept or violates your own little fucking fantasy history?
And they have a word for it. Maybe I should not even say the name. That'll make people want to go look it up. But basically, the movie Prometheus is their creation story.
I like how he doesn't even tell you what the word is. You know, in fear you'll look it up and maybe realize what absolute horseshit he's spouting. The idea that life originated in space and was seeded on Earth is called panspermia. And the idea that aliens, intelligent life out there, were directly involved in the process is called directed panspermia. Now, it's the Pew Research Forum versus Alex Jones's rambling. Only 8% of this supposed global scientific elite accept that supreme beings had something to do with evolution. Not even a significant minority of scientists accept that life was seeded on Earth in a way similar to that shit film Prometheus. You're just making things up again, Alex. And it's also kind of funny that Prometheus, the actual mythological figure, also is a part of a creation myth that's a lot closer to the Judeo-Christian creation myth than anything else, but that's just aside from the fact, I suppose.
That's what they believe. I'm not saying that's necessarily what I believe. I'm telling you what they believe. They believed it since the time of Charles Darwin.
Once again, do you have any links to this? Do you have any evidence? Can you show me where it says that the majority of the global elite and scientists actually believe that life on Earth was seeded by aliens? And can you show me how this belief was so widespread in Charles Darwin's time? Because as someone who actually knows a bit about what science was like in the 19th century, I can say quite comfortably that the idea that life on Earth was seeded by aliens was not a widespread belief by any stretch of the imagination.
And then they teach you some pop garbage that they don't even believe. But let me digress out of that.
No, hold on, Alex. I have a few questions. Question number 1. How is this conspiracy kept up, which would involve the involvement of scientists, thousands if not millions of them around the world, all keeping up this charade for the sake of hiding involvement of aliens in life's origins? How do they edit out all of their papers and research to erase any mention of aliens and conveniently are able to consistently set it up so that it's all purely naturalistic without any intelligent involvement in these processes? How did the New York Times suddenly get into the know about this stuff and were allowed to publish the article you're referencing in your video without getting censored or reprimanded? And how are you able to continue to post these videos on YouTube for so long with literally no fucking consequences other than being called a lunatic by the general public when you're supposedly exposing all the really interesting and incredible details of the globalists? Like, do you have any idea how difficult it would be to keep up a conspiracy like this? You don't, do you?
The reason I was going down this road for this short segment is that whether you believe there are other entities in other dimensions, aliens, other worlds, whatever you want to call it, take the movie Pacific Rim. Cheesy, fun movie to take 10-year-old kids to. But at least the preface that we always thought life would come from space, not from a interdimensional fracture in the Pacific Rim.
What the flying fuck are you getting to, boy? Like, first you say that scientists and global elites everywhere since the 19th century literally believe the sort of premise Prometheus, the movie, set up, and now you're talking about how Pacific Rim had a different premise about them coming out from rifts in the ocean. Like, do the global elite actually believe that and not directed panspermia? This is what happens when you don't rehearse your lies before the show, Alex. You can do better than this. I don't believe a single fucking thing you say, but I believe in you.
That just shows how we have to think outside the limited little box that we've been put in. But I'm not even saying that's what's going on. The elite, in their own words, from Ray Kurzweil to you name it, say that they believe they're merging with machines to create the new Superman.
And what does that have to do with Pacific Rim and interdimensional rifts? Huh?
Ubermenschen. And of course, every time we start hearing about Superman and Ubermenschen, every time we start seeing that and hearing that, look out, governments start massacring people because you're profane, ugly, stunted animals anyways, according to them. You know, I love the 1940s and 50s because almost everything you see in comic books at that time wasn't plagiarized, but to a great extent was basically taken from Norse and Germanic legend and then superimposed onto mutant Superman.
The only time that, Superman or Ubermenschen was used in relation to slaughtering humanity was the Nazi Party's misinterpretation of Friedrich Nietzsche's work. Nietzsche himself was a very staunch individualist, and the concept of the Ubermenschen was someone who was able to transcend the societal bounds of morality and be able to figure out their own morality and their own destiny for themselves. And people misinterpret that as, don't play by the rules, don't try to be a good person, just be an asshole because it's your life, it's your world, and you get to choose whatever. But what it really means is you need to critically examine what you think is right and wrong, why you think it is, and you don't just accept because everyone else thinks it's right and wrong as the answer, which in turn isn't even remotely compatible with the Nazi Party and their staunch fascist, never question the Fuhrer, always do what your superiors say, stand in line and goose step philosophy. So you had one severe misinterpretation of Nietzschean philosophy with the Ubermensch, and now you're talking about comic books, which hasn't led to diddly dick as far as slaughtering massive amounts of people for being ugly and disabled are concerned. And while I'm not an expert in comic book history, I doubt a huge portion of it was taken from Norse mythology. The closest one I can think about are the Thor comics, and even in those and like the movie adaptations, they're sort of switching around and saying, oh, they're not really gods, they're just, aliens of some sort. But while it is true that a lot of early comic book heroes do sort of try to go along with the classical idea of a hero, it's not exactly related to, say, Nietzschean philosophy that you're claiming it is. You're just bouncing all over the fucking walls with these points here. None of them really related to each other.
Man of Steel, Superman, Ubermenschen, Overrace, Super Race, Master Race.
Like you can see right here, he's trying to connect the comic book character Superman to the concept of a master race. Now, a history of Superman isn't like all sunshine and rainbows. He was used for, say, anti-Japanese American propaganda in some times, but the modern day Superman, the one that Alex Jones would be looking at when he scowls at a comic book and all the globalist propaganda between the pages, isn't a proponent of the master race, and he's even going to sort of admit this later in the video, where he talks about how in the story Superman fights against characters who have this whole master race and eugenicist belief. But somehow it's Superman that's connected to it.
But by the time, World War II rolls around, Superman is battling Hitler.
Yeah, that's almost as if he isn't a proponent of master race ideas.
And of course, they admit all this to you in a general public propaganda piece in the first new Superman, Man of Steel, where he's against eugenics, but Zod is for it. He wants to kill everybody on Krypton and rebuild, but then the planet blows up before he can do that. So he comes to Earth and he's going to kill everybody and then repopulate the Earth with the Ubermenschen.
Alright, let me get this straight. So, these comic book creators and movie directors and all these people involved in the Superman sphere of media are or working with the global elite to instill pro-eugenicist master race propaganda into the hearts and minds of the public. And the way they're doing that in this new Man of Steel movie is Superman, Ubermensch, what the fuck ever, fighting against a guy who's trying to instill this. Like the American icon Superman that, so many people look up to and adore and is a classic beloved character in comic book history, is fighting against a eugenicist who wants to, control the population, and that's actually the global elite's way of instilling pro-eugenicist ideas into people's minds. Why the fuck not, Alex, huh? Why the fuck not? It's just like Schindler's List, where it's actually Steven Spielberg wanting to mercilessly slaughter millions of Jewish people. Because why the fuck not? If you depict something, it must mean you're in favor of it. Isn't that right, Alex Sarkeesian? You fucking nitwit.
And the establishment is just in your face, telling you what they're going to do to you and your family. So I'm just here warning you, okay? That's all I'm getting at here. We'll be back. I'm going to get into the election and more. Stay with us.
Yeah, that's what's going on, Alex. It's the establishment, the globalist elite. They're threatening us through fucking comic books and comic book movies. Like General Zod wants to bring eugenics to the Earth. That's what we're going to do to you. Does that apply to all comic book villains or Superman villains? Like when Lex Luthor uses some incredible technology to rob a bank, is a global elite saying, that's what we're going to do to you. We're going to use our anti-gravity jetpacks and freeze rays to rob your banks. It's like, does it apply to Batman villains, to Spider-Man villains, to Captain America villains? Oh boy, better watch out for Doc Ock. That one's a real transhumanist threat. And why would they even do this? Why would they threaten people through comic books? Like, what is with your stupid fucking beliefs where there's all this super secret stuff going on, but they, riddle all of media and culture with their super secret plans? For what? For idiots like you to make it into some puzzle game where you figure out the hidden meanings behind everything? And Superman came out like back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Back then, America actually had eugenicist programs. Eugenics fell out of favor because of the Nazis. But before that, there were plenty of people in the US who were in support of it. So why didn't the global elite keep the programs? Why did they do away with it? Why didn't they try to convince the American people that the Nazis were right all along? Considering they apparently control every aspect of culture and media, that should have been very simple. You yourself should know how easy it is to herd a bunch of fucking sheep. But no, America did away with its eugenicist programs. It fell way out of favor with the public, and now eugenicists are villains in comic book movies for objectively good guys like Superman to fight against. Like, that's another thing. Superman isn't even a morally gray character. He's like, he has his flaws with his putting up with his powers and desperately trying to save everyone, and feelings of loss and disconnect from the world at times, but he's not like a bad guy. He's not like or even a morally gray guy. He's literally just the goody two shoes, the true good, the chaotic good, the lawful good. He will never be in the neutral or evil zone. And he's the one who's fighting against eugenicists, and that's supposed to be propaganda in favor of eugenics. Why the fuck not, Alex? Why the fuck not? So that's where his video pretty much ends. And let's move on to the next one, because I'm pretty sure the next one will be a bastion of critical thinking and supporting evidence, and I can't even keep up with the sarcasm here. It's gonna be fucking stupid.
Okay, I'm getting into the transhumanist cult, and that's who runs the planet. That's the modern name of the eugenicist.
If transhumanists actually ran the planet, we'd see a lot more focus on science and research and education than we do now, and we'd see a lot more money going into prosthetics and artificial organs than we do now. And if eugenicists ran the planet, then we'd actually see eugenicist programs. We'd see laws passed ensuring certain people are forcefully sterilized. Or at least eugenists as you're talking about.
Julian Huxley changed the name.
Julian Huxley coined the term transhumanist to accurately describe the position of wanting to use science and technology to improve upon the flaws or limitations of human biology. Meanwhile, eugenics already accepts the premise that humans are already good enough, and we just need to weed out the deficiencies within humanity. And because we didn't have any genetic engineering or any sort of advanced science on that level or area, and society and morality wasn't quite as egalitarian and progressive and compassionate as it is now, some pretty fucked up things happened. But no, the word transhumanist and transhumanism wasn't coined as a way to hide the word eugenicist or eugenics.
When he was the head of the United Nations UNESCO program and wrote a big white paper that's we linked to in Endgame, whatistheendgame.com, the online bibliography. I mean, that's what's so crazy about this is I've got, all I do is read their internal handbooks and stuff that's public. They think they've beaten us so bad that they don't even care. They just prance around publicly. And I was at a dinner party last night, and it was biologist, a molecular biologist.
Those damn globalists, molecumologists. I hate them so much.
Doctors, you name it, and I was, they were telling me about all this, and it just reminded me of just how widespread this is. And
Transhumanism is pretty far from widespread. It doesn't even get mentioned in, political debates or anything like that, the way that, say, immigration and warfare and education and certain rights of certain groups are mentioned. Like, it's still quite a subculture. Now, it might be larger among scientists who actually work with this stuff and are able to talk about it a little bit more with more knowledge, but that's pretty far cry from being widespread. Like, the Pew Research I've mentioned earlier, very few people compared to scientists accept the idea of evolution and that's a natural process. So what's widespread among scientists isn't necessarily going to be widespread among the public.
And now it's being rolled out on the public, so that's coming up. Oh, it was marine biologist as well. I forgot that one.
They're gonna augment the sharks with freaking laser beams on their freaking heads.
But that's all these people talk about. That's all anybody with a PhD talks about. And
yeah, all those PhD holding scientists, all they talk about is transhumanism. He never really mentioned what the conference was that he went to. But if it was a conference where the subject of it was strictly transhumanism, then you shouldn't be surprised if all the presenters there tried talking about an aspect of transhumanism. But Alex Jones, for all we know, he could have been just watching Let's Plays on YouTube of Deus Ex and misinterpreting it for a scientific conference.
most of them, I've noticed in the past, thought they were going to be part of it. These folks knew they weren't. They all acted like folks that knew they were getting ready to be lined up in front of a firing squad, because one of them was a consultant to big corporations and government, and he knew all about it and was pretty freaked out. But they didn't even know who I was. They knew because they worked in and around these people. And that's why you'll notice none of these people have children. And they told me about going dark and how most of the intelligentsia is just preparing to die.
Well, several years later, and literally nothing has come of that, but if we keep, pretending and moving the goalposts and throwing even more trash into the heap, we can just ignore that very unsavory fact.
I can't believe. Meanwhile, you got the general public running around telling you about basketball and football and the average male driving around acting tough in their truck. Meanwhile, they're poisoning your food, your water, you're under full attack.
So be sure to fight against food poisoning by the globalists, with all these handy-dandy supplements and minerals they conveniently have listed in their fucking video description. Not links to all the articles and stuff he's talking about in his videos. But you gotta make that money, Mr. Jones. You gotta make that dosh.
Oh, I can't handle it anymore. I'm sorry, it's coming up. This makes me rethink everything. I mean, I'm a guy who's been a trailblazer exposing it all, but it's just how real it is. They're really doing it. They're really... All right. I want to go to this 2-minute video. The Rochester police ticket supporters of woman arrested for recording cop in Rochester, New York. If you...
Alright, that bit has diddly dick to do with the subject at hand. So I'm gonna cut ahead to back when he's rambling on all frantic and hysteric about the scientific elite and transhumanism and eugenics and all that shit.
They're talking about dishonoring all of that, the scientific dictatorship, having a breakaway civilization under global national security, corporate security, that we are not allowed to be transcendent and enter. Now, whether any of this is actually going to happen or not...
It might not be true, but you should be really, really scared of these claims I'm making that have no backing and no evidence to support them at all. I mean, if the elite... the elite rich people already are fairly separate from everyone else. It doesn't require transhumanism or eugenics or anything like that. It's a problem now, and it doesn't require any of this, DC Comics villain bullshit he's talking about. But simple class warfare and economic issues doesn't quite have the same flair and interest as every single scientist who had a major contribution to the history of science being in on some eugenicist, transhumanist plot spanning back to when Charles Darwin was alive.
This is what the entire modern infrastructure, pre-computer, biometrics, 150-year-old science for genetics and racial hygiene, Cold Springs Harbor Eugenics Lab, the Human Genome Project, for global extermination.
Why the fuck would the Human Genome Project be in favor of global extermination? The Human Genome Project was just set up to decode the human genome, and the reason scientists want to do that is so they can figure out which genes are linked to which traits and be able to manipulate that for the benefit of humanity. What genes are involved in sickle cell anemia, and can that be corrected? What genes might lead to muscular dystrophy and just all these wide range of issues that aren't due to nurture and therefore must be due to nature? And can we fix that? And what side of the Human Genome Project was it? Was it the government-led National Institute of Health under Francis Collins that was trying to exterminate humanity? Or was it the private sector led by John Craig Venter who was trying to exterminate humanity? Or were they both trying to exterminate humanity and was all one giant show trial? I mean, the answer is obviously neither of them wanted to exterminate humanity, and despite the differences Venter and Collins might have on various issues, both men ultimately worked to the benefit of mankind. But that doesn't make as interesting a story as them all wanting to slaughter us, now does it?
Or race-specific bioweapons.
And can you explain how it's possible to make race-specific bioweapons? What the science in it might be? Where they're being developed? Because once again, there's literally nothing anywhere from either party who was involved in the Human Genome Project trying to make weapons that specifically target certain races.
All of this, the founder of IBM, the first computers, the Hollerith machines, were to decide how to round up blacks and kill them. Then Hitler said, I love it. And an IBM, Mr. Watson loved it. He sent technicians to Germany and throughout the war, and that was what the Jews and others had on their arm, was a number to be entered in the IBM machine to decide how long to work them before you kill them.
Again, more unfounded lies. Jewish people and anyone who was sent to the slaughterhouses, not just them, but gay people, disabled people, prisoners of war, Slavics, and so on, were issued serial numbers, and that's just so they can be tracked the old-fashioned way. It didn't require any computer technology. And the history of computing technology, though there were some computer technicians working with the Nazis, there were plenty working against them. A major example being, say, Alan Turing, one of the most famous computer scientists in history, who worked on cracking the Nazi Enigma machine. But, you know, maybe he was in on it too. Who the fuck knows?
Now we just have an NSA Google model that's tracking everybody, figuring out exactly who you really are, what's going to be done to you, how it's all standardized, baby's blood for now 39 years, taken secretly globally, global government set up more than 50 years ago.
It really is a problem that conspiracy theorists, when they're not completely off the fucking rails in every conceivable way, try to mix in like actual things that are going on with their nutty interpretation of how the world works. Like, again, surveillance is an issue. It's one of the biggest, I'd say, pressing issues of the modern era. And the NSA is indeed a part of that. But this whole idea that there's some project going on where they determine when you're born, what role you'll take and how much you'll work until you die, and harvesting your blood when you're born is fucking insane. What evidence do you have to support this? Where does it say we, the global elite, are going to harvest babies' blood for our eugenicist program? Because that's what we were doing with the Nazis, even though we, the global elite, controlled everything during the Nazi time, and we still defeated the Nazis. But we're gonna bring it back somehow. Yeah. Be sure to buy up on your Anthroplex, your Deep Cleanse, your Liver Shield, your Ancient Defense, Secret 12, Super Female Vitality, and Immune Support 100% Organic Coffee, people.
Total standardization. They're mopping up the few final countries they don't control. Now, that said, I want to go to this video clip. I'm at this dinner party with next-door neighbors. I get invited over there. And they had marine biologists and molecular biologists and doctors and corporate integration team leader fusion PhDs, and none of them knew who I was, which is a rarity, except for folks that invited me. And they were there working with some filmmakers, is why I was invited. And they said, Alex, what we're worried about if you're a talk show host is the thing that the hospitals have really been set up to kill people now, but it's compartmentalized. The doctors don't even know, and that it's more dangerous to go to the hospital, than to not. And this is all being engineered in. And as Ray Kurzweil's saying, they're about to merge with machines, and the technology is doubling now every year, and computers will be 1 trillion times faster than humans within 20 years, and the future doesn't need us, and the global elite plan to do all of this. And I said, no, I know about all that. And I told the guy a few things. He goes, wow, you know about that? And I said, yes. And he says, well, how do you fight going dark like so many other people are doing? And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, so many people that are learning about this, there's the decision to join it, or there's the decision to go dark and just spend the time you've got with your family and just prepare for all of this. And he said, well, the way we're going to be able to beat the machines, as Kurzweil says, is because they're going to be so much faster, is we must merge ahead of time. So there's a race of who will merge first. So it's like an arms race, but it's a tech race. Now, again, whether all of this is really going to happen or not, and much of it has, Kurzweil, and we'll play when we come back from break, Kurzweil has a new movie coming out that everybody's sending me and hyping. And have you ever heard of this? Yeah, I made a film about it 4 years ago. And not just with Kurzweil's quotes. And it's this happy-go-lucky, thing about he's optimistic about humanity, and we're going to merge with machines, and the T-shirt they sell is get ready, for evolution, and it's the next level. What they don't tell you is Kurzweil and all these people, and his main benefactor is Google and Bill Gates. Bill Gates' daddy, government and army intelligence, and then the head of Planned Parenthood, and Gates is openly trying to produce vaccines that are delivered through mosquitoes so you can't get away from it, and saying we need zero human growth. And
alright, I'm gonna stop here. Ray Kurzweil has a benefactor in Google because he works for Google. Like he's an employee of Google. And yeah, he would make a movie where transcendence and transhumanism and all these futuristic concepts are ultimately good because that's his philosophy, that's what he believes. He's not going to make a depressing cyberpunk film where transhumanism actually leads to significant strife and issues. And then there's talking about Bill Gates wanting to genetically engineer mosquitoes. The reason they're doing that is so that they can weed out malaria and therefore save millions of lives. You're talking about how they're trying to kill off everyone not a part of the transhumanist elite, and then you reference a project where they're saving fucking people in shithole countries in Africa. The very people you think that if they wanted to kill off everything, they wouldn't even blink at that area because it would be doing so poorly without any intervention. They're saving lives, Alex Jones. And they're doing actual good work. Not like you and your fucking stupid, inane ramblings against every bit of progress and innovation that humanity is ever able to come up with. Sitting in your fucking little talk show host room, selling your shitty fraud medicines in your fucking YouTube channel, railing against giants who actually want to make the world a better place. And you know what? The world is better off because people like Bill Gates and even Ray Kurzweil exist, but we're a whole lot worse off because people like you exist, who look at fear at everything different and everything new. It's absurd. Grow the fuck up and do some actual goddamn research.
I mean, this is a really nasty guy, but it's always packaged in how sweet and loving it is. For the general public, the unwashed masses, the football fans. For the intelligentsia mid-level, it's, well, we got to get rid of the general public because they're hurting the earth.
So the global elite is trying to exterminate huge swaths of humanity. They must have foiled their own plot in the 1940s with the likes of Hitler and Stalin and Mussolini and all such awful dictators, but they're trying it again. And not just with Superman movies, but also with Planned Parenthood. Because if you want to kill off billions of people, the best way to do that is through teaching them proper sex education, screening them for STDs, providing free condoms. It's blood in the street.
But then for the higher level crust, Hollywood, you know, the heads of Google, others, they're openly told. That's why Hollywood's so into my show, because they were told this stuff years ago in secret at these meetings, and now they hear me talking about it, making films about it. Because I reverse engineered the whole thing, and they're like, wow, how do you know about this? By the way, I've had as big as it gets in media contact me.
Did you see the background there? The sign about Obama's birth certificate? You remember that? You remember how Trump was also a huge part of that? It's stupid all the way down. But now there's significant swaths of people who actually believe this guy without any hint of irony or jest. Like, the comment section for these two videos are filled with people making fun of him, and now people actually take him seriously.
Last few weeks, we're going to see if we get him on the show, but they're really waking up. But not because of me, because they're at the highest levels. They're hearing all this. They're being invited in, okay? And they're getting very close to this, folks. Now they think you're stupid and won't be smart enough to look into all this and find out I'm telling you the truth. They think they got you.
I mean, they're making movies about it. Ray Kurzweil is writing books about it. None of them are about, like, huge eugenicist programs, of course. But then again, none of them are trying to enact huge eugenicist programs where billions of people are done away with so the global elite can live comfortably on the empty planet Earth.
Almost 4 years ago, when my film Endgame, Blueprint for Global Enslavement, and it's the blueprint from their own stated plans. The film has whatistheendgame.com or endgamethemovie.com that has an online bibliography for the whole documentary. And unfortunately, the documentary's only been seen around 10 million times for free on the internet. And people are like, unfortunately, that isn't a lot. No, it's not. Films like The Obama Deception, over 30 million times. Fall of the Republic, over 20 million times. Some of my other films, more than 15 million times.
It's such a shame when one incredibly nutty, scaremongering documentary isn't seen as much as the other incredibly nutty, scaremongering documentaries. It must be the globalists.
Endgame is the most important film I've ever made. period. Period. And it's evergreen. It's more powerful today than when I made it 4 years ago. And it's all their words. The most powerful people in the world, all they talk about is not dying. Of course, use common sense.
The desire to not die has existed for as long as human civilization has been around. And there were plenty of, mythical examples of things that prevent you from dying. There's deals with the gods, there's a fountain of youth. It's just now we're able to actually ask the question, is it possible to radically extend a person's life using science and technology rather than magic or searching for ancient artifacts? And this isn't everyone. Like, plenty of people in the elite aren't transhumanists. They aren't interested in living forever. Has Obama said that? Has Oprah, one of the most wealthy people around, said that? Warren Buffett? Like, yeah, people don't want to die, but this isn't some grand fucking conspiracy. It's a very open and available thing for people to look up if they so desire. You can read books by Aubrey de Grey. You can watch movies that Ray Kurzweil was involved with. And you can apparently go to these conferences where all these scientists and elite talk about not wanting to die, like you supposedly did, but still haven't posted any of the footage.
I mean, 20 years ago, they synthesized genetically perfect cloned human growth hormone. Can you imagine what they've got now? Well, under this global government system, you're not going to get access to that. And they already have life extension systems if you follow these regimens. And if you don't get, your head chopped off in a car accident, where you'll be able to live several hundred years. And if you're able to do that...
What regiment exists that lets you live for centuries? Like exercising, eating well, taking your vitamins. That can give you a few extra years down the road, but there is nothing right now that lets you live for centuries. Otherwise, futurists like Ray Kurzweil would be talking about it non-stop. Just like he talks about all this other science and technology that exists and theorize about a technology that might exist later. But apparently there's a super secret regiment that lets you live for literal centuries. I wonder if the Huxleys use that.
They practice all this medicine on us, then it gets compartmentalized. What works is given to them, we get all the garbage. Then now they're going after our health, food, minerals, things that would help us to block the public from getting it. What would you do if you were a billionaire? What would you do? What would you do? Well, you would see the rest of the public as scum. You would go to these big meetings. You would be told, join the world government, join the collectivist elite program, and we'll transfer the general public's wealth to you. We'll wipe them out in orderly, compartmentalized function while we pose as the saviors.
Why would the global elite invite these billionaires into these ranks if they already have the science and technology to allow them to live for centuries and control every aspect of everything? And no, Alex Jones, not all billionaires go on to resent the general republic as shit beneath their heel. You just really like that interpretation because you're not a billionaire and you're somehow resentful of it. Does Donald Trump count as that actually? Is he part of the global elite since he claims to be a billionaire? Was he invited into their ranks or is he somehow special? I'm asking this to current Alex Jones and not past Alex Jones. I have no idea what the past guy thinks of him. But even if he like completely railed against Trump in a video and said, "Oh, he's a part of the elite. He's dumbing down America. He's hurting the cattle." Like as soon as Trump ran for president, that fucking changed in a heartbeat. I can guarantee you that. And of course, this whole idea that we're all being like led to the slaughter, our medicines are actually poison and they're being tested on us, even though that wouldn't be allowed by the FDA, even though there's very strict regulations when it comes to testing out new medicines, and even though if that existed, it would be far more well known than just fucking Alex Jones whining about it on a shitty low show.
And they're going to have, instead of drug enforcement, they're going to have brain augmentation enforcement. People are going to be getting arrested for augmentation that's illegal. And you'll be happy to not have kids ever again if you're given a nice apartment, left alone, and are allowed to hook into a system that gives you unlimited pleasure.
That actually doesn't sound too bad of a thing. Not everyone wants to have children today, even without, perpetual pleasure modules. So I don't really see much of an issue like that. Idiots like Alex Jones will, because they think it's all some super secret globalist plot to control the population. But for anyone reasonably smart,
you're not going to want to even go on and live. And they have forecast all of this. And so all the tech they're selling us has back doors and spying systems built into it. And all the tech that Kurzweil and others are going to turn loose, NASA, Google, Microsoft funding all of this on you, is going to be almost impossible to turn down.
He gets so close to actually talking about real issues, both in the modern times with the issues of surveillance, and with a potential transhumanist future where it might eventually become as difficult to function in a society without any advanced technology, similar to how it is difficult to function in modern society without a car or access to the internet. But I'm not giving him that credit. That credit is for people who have honest, real objections to transhumanism that isn't tied into some fantasy history involving Victorian scientists, Nazis, and IBM, and the Human Genome Project, all conspiring for some eugenicist utopia for the global elite. So no, Alex. No.
And this is just one level of the technology while they get the real stuff. And they write about that like you're an idiot. Here is the new trailer for the new Kurzweil movie. Remember, this is coming out in August. And I got laughed at for saying, once they have their world government, they believe they'll be able to live forever. That's all from Google, from Schmidt and Gates and Turner and all of them. Prince Philip, Prince Charles, that's all they do.
Uh-oh, someone's having a temper tantrum there. Like, no, that's not all they do. Not every single person in a position of power is part of some global elite to control everything and everyone. Prince Charles has jack shit to do with transhumanism. Ray Kurzweil's movie has jack shit to do with controlling the population. I don't even think Bill Gates has anything to do with transhumanism. The only thing you mentioned was his organization's idea of genetically modifying mosquitoes so that they don't give millions of people malaria. Yeah, real fucking evil.
24/7! They don't take vaccines. They don't eat GMO food. They have their own farms. They admit it.
Do you have any evidence for that, or just more links to shitty supplements from your website?
They have emergency underground seed vaults for after they've wrecked everything to redesign it. These people are crazy. The point is, I'm not the crazy one reporting this to you.
And like a fart in the wind, Alex Jones disappears. So that's been 2 crazy videos of his on the topic of transhumanism. or at least as close to the topic as he can possibly get, without actually talking about it, but instead bringing it all back to his eugenics, alternate history fantasies, his railing against literally anyone and everyone in politics and business, and just a whole level of crazy he wants to scare you with, so you'll just watch him and believe him and hide away with him and only accept suggestions from him, like stupid supplements that he conveniently is okay with sharing. If any of this was in the pharmaceutical companies, he would rail against it as being the trash they sell you while they get the real stuff. But conveniently, now if he's willing to sell you this stuff, then he must be at least willing to prove it or approving of it. So is this the real stuff? Is this the real medicine that actually works and isn't shit like in the pharmaceutical companies? In which case, how are you able to have access to it? And if you're able to access it, then anyone else should reasonably be able to access it, which would sort of blow a hole in the whole fucking narrative. Like, yeah, I'm really railing on this fact, but just shows what a massive hypocrite and con he is. He scares people and then takes their money. He empties their minds and he tries to empty their wallets. Alex Jones is a blight on the entire fucking internet, the entire political sphere, any decent discussion on actual politics and the issues of people who have power, the issues surrounding government, the issues surrounding business, the issues surrounding science. None of those discussions benefit from anything Alex Jones has to say, and he's just shitting up the waters. There are quite a few people who have objections to transhumanism, and it comes from honest objections, honest worries. But Alex Jones isn't one of them. And I think it would be good for everyone if people stop listening to this guy. Maybe he is right. Maybe his YouTube channel will shut down tomorrow. In that case, I see no reason to link to any of his videos. But maybe it won't. Maybe he's just throwing up some more scaremongering to get his supporters to continue supporting him as fervently as possible. Not let go of Alex Jones no matter how crazy or off the rails he gets. Crazy to the point where he thinks British royalty is part of a global elite trying to control the population of humanity by some eugenics program using Planned Parenthood and transhumanism and dumbing down the population with football, but also like warning or threatening everyone through Ray Kurzweil movies or Superman movies or just any bit of media he can twist and turn and misinterpret into some message about the global elite fucking around with the human race. This man is an idiot, plain and simple. And if I haven't convinced you of it, I certainly hope his own words in the clips I've shown you has. Oh, and did you conveniently forget about when he said he would post clips from when he talked or when he attended that conference of all those scientists apparently talking about transhumanism? All those marine biologists heavily involved in the subject? Not a single fucking clip. But why would he post it? It might be damning evidence against him. Might just further show he's full of shit. Doesn't even tell you what the conference name was, when it happened, or anything like that. He just says, I attended a conference. Well, you know, Alex Jones, I attended a conference with Mussolini, with Leonardo da Vinci, with Super Mario, and with Ray Kurzweil, and they were all talking about how they're trying to use My Little Pony to spread love and friendship among the population. Like, you can make any fucking claim, and if you have nothing to back it up, it's worthless. It wouldn't even be bad if he linked to the stuff in the videos. He linked to the New York Times article he discussed. He linked to this trailer for the Ray Kurzweil film he talked about, or linked to a video of the conference. But he doesn't. Let's not let those pesky facts get in the way, huh? So that has been 2 nutty videos for the price of 1. I hope I gave you something to think about and otherwise entertained you. In the next video I respond to when it comes to transhumanism, I'll try to find someone who's at least respectable. Someone who isn't a fucking liar and fraud, but someone I can actually disagree with and politely discuss their points and try to civilly point out why they're wrong, and I don't feel the need to call them a fucking idiot and a fraud every other sentence. So let's wait and see what videos I can find. Thank you for watching and take care.